in some ways, the way I look at this panel is there probably isn't a group that is as deep on a day-to-day basis, practically with the real impacts of the accounting and taxes for crypto, as in seeing lots of companies, seeing lots of transactions, seeing the weird ones, the normal one, NFTs, DeFi, all of that as the group here. So it's actually a great honor to, I'll go and do quick intros here. I'll start with Mel Comer of Fuel3. Super welcome. Thank you for being on the panel. Andrea Perlak of Crypto Accounting Group. Thank you for being on the panel. And Nitin Ashok of MetaCounts. He actually also represents the Canadian side of things as well. So he'll be able to bring some unique perspective in that regard. So excited to dive in here with the intros being covered. Let me start with this, because regardless of the audience, whether you're someone trying to start a crypto accounting practice or you are part of a company that is doing crypto accounting, there's a lot of insight that this group can provide just by talking about your view of the space and what you deal with. And maybe we start with Mel first, and then we go to Andrea and then Nitin. So Mel, maybe just give us your view of how you see the space today and the various things that you're dealing with.
Sure. Thanks, Ore, and really excited to be here. So in terms of the space, I think Pat hit it off and really encapsulated it in his opening when he talked about regulation. And to me, the number one thing that is challenging this year, crypto has had its years. It had, the year of the ICO, DeFi summer, NFTs go crazy. Last year, everything was falling apart, and with Terra Luna and then FTX. And not surprisingly, this year is regulation. Now, we knew regulation was coming, and regulation is a good thing. But all of a sudden, it goes from quiet on the regulation front to fair value, IRS staking rewards treatment. Coming down the pike is IRS reporting requirements for 1099s on crypto transactions. So these are all things that we need to wrap our heads around it and really understand it. And I think most importantly, once we do, is to make sure the technology we're using is up to speed on that and is in compliance and will help us get there. So, and that's something that, Bitwave does all the time for us.
Amazing. Thanks, Mel. Andrea, maybe you give your lens on how you're seeing things as well.
Of course. And since Mel just talked about the regulatory environment, maybe I could just hit something different. Besides the sheer terror of most of us in the marketplace, stoner cats, they, got issued, they were charged by the SEC for sale of unregistered securities yesterday, and they settled for $1 million. That has a huge ripple effect for the NFT market, and it really is making everyone take pause. And then the arrests with Tornado Cash, right? That really is unsettling for us who's trying to get it right, particularly when all of us were like, wait a second, is that sale really an unregistered security? I don't think so. Like, we're coming at it, we're trying to do it right, and yet they're smacking us down to the point where they're putting people in jail or fining them $1 million. So that's a really sobering environment, right? But when you step back, we're still producing. There are constantly new products coming out every single day. And it's amazing to me, despite the fact that our market is so bearish right now, our tokens are so undervalued, how are we producing all of these amazing products? So I saw a panel yesterday where people were talking about how, while we feel like we're really in the bear market, from the outside perspective, they're looking at us going, we got to get into the crypto market. We got to get into Web3. JP Morgan was a big example of that. So I think it's really important for us to all pause and say, hey, we're going to get through. Just hang in there. We're all on a runway. Like, every single one of our clients, all of larger clients, smaller clients, all of us have a runway in terms of how much cash we have. Just hang tight. manage your runway. Make sure you take a really careful look at your risks, your regulatory risks, as Mel mentioned, and we will get there soon. So hang in there and keep up the good work.
Fantastic, Andrea. Nitin, please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Ori. Great to be here. So yeah, I think the space is rapidly evolving, and we're seeing some significant changes over the last couple of years. There's definitely an increased regulatory attention that has been happening, and there has been a focus from these authorities to bring some clarity into the space. What we are also seeing is a lot of these tax authorities like IRS, CRA, they're putting more resources into crypto tax divisions, and this has been evidenced from the fact that we're receiving more and more follow-ups from them. And if you compare 2021 with 2022, there's definitely an uptick in terms of inquiries and audit letters. So what this has meant is that a lot of these individuals and crypto entities in the space are realizing that there is a need for proper crypto accounting systems. Which is where something like Bitwave comes in, and that's really helpful. So I think with these changes happening, our role as crypto accountants becomes very important to help with this transition.
Fantastic. Let's maybe take that one level deeper. So we talked about regulation, we talked about new products, we talked about the interaction with accounting and tax authorities. Maybe Mel, I'll probably go with you first again here, which is that, can you bring the group into your world on a day-to-day basis and the complexities of how those things affect what you're doing practically day to day?
Absolutely. And for anyone on this webinar who's thinking of jumping in the crypto accounting pool, come on in, okay? It's a little scary, but you've got a lot of friends here. This is probably one of the most collaborative groups of people I've ever seen. And in terms of support, Bitwave has provided us at Fuel3 incredible support, where we can ping you guys anytime and say, I just don't understand this transaction. And whether it's you, Ore, or Ziris, or Joe, or Jenny, and everybody else there, always willing to help to try to understand. And there's no question that's stupid. So don't hesitate to ask. And phone a friend, okay? Anyone on this panel, I'm sure would be happy to, anyone thinking of getting in or anyone struggling with anything, talk to us, because it's lonely if you're trying to do this all on your own. So that's number one, come on in. I think the important thing for somebody who is thinking of it or is trying to scale their firm is you need the technology, okay? You cannot do this without the technology. And in order to do that, you need to commit yourself to understanding that technology and being becoming a advanced user on it. Otherwise, it's useless. There are so many tips and tricks we could give you on how to use Bitwave and how to make it easier and how to do things more efficiently. So I think that's really my advice to people in this space.
Amazing. And Andrea, let me make you take it from another lens of, you get a client, today. What are some of the things you are immediately thinking of that are, let's go both sides with it, positive things that you expect, but also challenges that immediately, as you're looking at you're scouting for, you think that you're going to face that others in the audience would benefit from hearing here?
Yeah, it's interesting. Mel talked about it. If you bring a new client in and they're not on a subledger, it really makes you take pause, especially with the new IFRS, the fair value accounting rules, which is already in place and under IFRS. It's really difficult to do that without tech, right? You're going to have to come up with your own data sets and all sorts of fun things like that. So you have to have tech, period, even the smaller organizations. But we always look for the cleanliness of the data coming through. And I'm sure everybody's going to laugh at that, but almost every single client you ever get say they have 100 wallets, but they really have 500 wallets. And the interaction between those wallets, right? That's super, super important because you need to make sure that you have completeness of data to get this right. So that's the number one thing. The second thing we look at is where are they organized? Because most organizations have more than one entity, and they're usually have an overseas entity. I don't think we have a single client that is only US based. So it used to just be BVI, right? And BVI became Bahamas. But now we're looking at people are shopping outside the US all the time. So are they talking to Hong Kong? Are they talking to, you can go down the list, Australia, Singapore is a big one. I've been looking at El Salvador a lot of Brazilian focused folks. You go down the list across the world, it goes down to Liechtenstein and Estonia. You have to know the regulatory environments into the accounting, and it's more regulatory environment. You have to know the tax laws. You have to understand the specific treatment of digital assets. So you have to make sure that they are close enough, or you can gain that expertise to do that client. It's a really important aspect of our job, and it's one of our biggest challenges to be neutral in terms of where a company is based in the world.
Amazing. Nitin, maybe you can add to that. We talked about different geographies. We talked about having the tech stack. You actually bring a lens from doing a lot of work with Canada and Canadian companies, but also US companies that have Canadian aspects to it. So what are some of the challenges that you face as you onboard clients and the like?
Yeah, I think crypto accounting in general is complex. If you compare a fiat transaction with a crypto transaction, so there are some extra layers to it. So you have to take care of the gas fees along with the debits and credits. And then along with that, there's also the gain and loss aspect to it if the token is moving. So I think all those things, along with that, there is, other stuff like there's staking happening, mining, there are a lot of these DeFi protocols. You have to understand these protocols a little bit to even comprehend how to treat them from an accounting perspective. So I think all of those things, and then it's very similar in Canada and US, the complexity of the blockchain are similar. So I think those things, along with, the massive amounts of data that we have to handle. Recently we were working with a client that had over 700,000 transactions over 8-month period, and they were utilizing a bot. So, those type of situations, require something like Bitwave. So we ended up using Bitwave. We try to utilize some of their, roll up functionalities and rule functionality, which, helped us handle that data. But I think those are some of the things that make it very difficult to, handle crypto transaction when you compare with the, the fiat side of things. So yeah, those are some of the things that I found it difficult.
Yeah, no, makes sense. Andrea, I'm going to direct the next one to you, which is that Nitin said something about, the fiat world versus the crypto world. And let's presume, I'm an accountant. My entire career, I've been doing the normal fiat stuff. I mean, I should just be able to cross over, just, and pick it up pretty quickly, right? I mean, that's my expectation. Or shouldn't that be, talk about that transition, maybe even from your background of I know you've been in the space for quite a while now, but like from non-crypto to crypto, how should people thinking about that think about getting themselves ready for that?
Yeah, it's such an interesting question because, as Mel said, we really do want to encourage strong accountants to come into this industry. So who has the easiest transition and why? My personal background is I was ex-KPMG for a long time, and I worked at the World Bank, and I ran the derivatives and bonds portfolio. So I had a strong FX background, a strong derivative background, and that has directly led to my understanding of crypto. And I was able to make that transition fairly quickly. And then the international GAAP, I knew IFRS as well as US GAAP, plus a bunch of others. So that type of background is ideal. But I've talked to a couple of folks from like the manufacturing industry. It's really a different mindset. The stronger balance sheet focused organizations that you come from with a ability to manage between US GAAP and other types of GAAP really are very advantageous. You also have to have a pretty strong tech background. So one of our rules is that we like to hire people who at least have their own wallets, whether it's Binance or they've just bought BTC on speculation, whatever it is. We want people to feel comfortable hopping into these different wallets and trying to understand how it works. Because if you don't personally dive into this world, you're not going to account for it correctly. You have to live it and breathe it to really account for it correctly. You have to understand the products, you have to appreciate the products, and quite frankly, it's got to be part of your ethos. I'm a huge Web3 fan. I believe in this market. I know we're gonna do great things and change the world. And if you dive into that mentality, I think that's going to make it a easier transition for you.
Oh, great insight, Andrea. Mel, I know you have comments on this.
I do. Just a couple of thoughts to add on to that, because again, I'm trying to lure people in that haven't done this yet. So what I tell my team when we bring on someone new who hasn't, and it's hard to find people who are experienced in crypto, so a lot of times we bring people in that aren't, and we train them. And I say, to make them more comfortable and not totally freak out, is 80% of what we do is traditional fiat accounting and traditional accounting, okay, period. You know, your debits and credits. Is one of my co-founders, Lisa Holloway, loves to say, if, you know, crypto is kind of like if inventory and FX had a baby, that would be crypto, you know, in terms of like what the accounting issues are. Okay, so that's important, is to think you could take baby steps. You don't have to know it all right away. Totally agree with Andrea. Be a practitioner, dabble in things, because that helps solidify it in your own mind. And most importantly, in as we think about any type of accountants, what we want are and this isn't always associated with accountants, but like, to me, it's creativity. Okay, and the way I define creativity, and this is not an original thought, but this really struck me, is creativity is the combination of being curious and being a problem solver. And boy, that really speaks to finding a good accountant. If they're curious and problem solvers, you're set.
Amazing. Nitin, I'll let you get in on that, right? In terms of how you guys think about hiring. And then maybe I'll just mention to the audience, I think there was a poll question that went up just about a minute ago. So make sure to answer that to get your CPEs. But Nitin, I'll come back to you on the resourcing skill set kind of question of, and I think, Nitin, what would be helpful is, you know, I think there are people in the audience here that sure might want to start their own accounting practice, but there are also people in the audience that work for enterprises. I am an accountant, you know, in an enterprise. Quite frequently, we meet people that were part of the fiat side of whatever enterprise that they were in, and then they got delegated or subscribed to do the crypto stuff because it just happened. So maybe you can talk just skill sets, regardless of whether you're starting your practice or you're a professional in a company that you're having to deal with crypto. How you think about that?
So I like to look at it from two perspectives. So one is, so if you are someone who's working on the back end, so basically doing the actual reconciliation work, you know, dabbling with the data on a day-to-day basis. So if you're that person, I think you need to have a very good analytical skills and attention to detail. And along with that, Excel skills are paramount. And because you're going to be using a lot of filtering, pivot tables, One thing that we also like to, use sometimes is Python, because a lot of these crypto software, they don't recognize a lot of data. So Python helps in, modeling the data in a way that is understandable by the software. So if you are on that side of, the curve, I think what you have to do is, you've got to have these skills and then keep on working on these transactions. As you work through transaction, you'll come across different types of transaction, and that will really help. But then if you're looking from a crypto tax advisor's perspective, then of course you've got to have your traditional accounting and tax background. Along with that, you got to have your cryptocurrency, understanding. You understand what's happening in the market, and then you just apply both of those things together. One thing I also want to mention is, if you're trying to become a crypto tax advisor, it would be great if you actually do the back end work, because that's really going to set that foundation. And then it will be easier for you to, advise your client after you have done that. So those are some of the skills that I look for, and when we hire a team and when we hire employees at our firm. But yeah, so those are some of the things.
Yeah, super helpful. I heard a bunch of things: crypto curious, interested in technology. I think Andrea and Nitin, you mentioned that getting that experience. Obviously, your foundational accounting and tax expertise. So lots of things here. So that's super helpful. Let's pivot into maybe one of the more technical questions, and we're not going to go into the technical accounting of it, but we all mentioned regulation. We mentioned fair value. We mentioned staking rules by the IRS earlier. The part that I think might be helpful for the audience to hear is, how are your clients responding to that? And then how are you having to respond to these known changes, changes coming, changes maybe coming, not coming? What, like, if you can give some experiences of like, how are clients feeling and acting, and then what are you having to do? I think that'd be awesome. So maybe Mel, you kick us off on that one, and then we will rotate through here.
Sure. I think our clients in particular rely on us for a lot of the information that they need. So what we do is we like to be proactive and get out and start talking to our clients about what this will mean, where this is going, and how we're going to work through it. And certainly we rely on Bitwave tremendously to, and just all the changes you guys are rolling out that we saw in Pat's intro are all things that are going to help us take care of it. But really it's client communication, and it's really trying to understand and lay out for them what the implications are, so that they grasp it, and that they can see what the results are going to be and the impact on the results. So I think that's probably the basic ways we think about it in terms of our clients.
Awesome. Nitin, do you want to cover that, and maybe any nuanced Canadian specific regulatory things that apply, if they do? But how are you helping your clients be ready, stay up to date, yourself, and the actions you're having to take?
Yeah, so not much happening on the Canadian side in terms of changes over the last couple of years, but usually what ends up happening is whatever happens in the US, that just Canadians just follow. So usually what we do is, so whenever something like this happens and the new changes come about, all we have to do is, we have to unlearn a lot of things that we've been doing in our workflows, and then imbibe those new items into the processes. And we do that by having in-firm training sessions, internal meetings, and sending out newsletters and things like that. Another aspect is educating clients. We do time to time have some webinars with our clients, wherein we just try to teach them, okay, this is what's happening in the market, and this is how it's going to affect your numbers. Clients normally depend on us. They try to understand it a little bit, but at the end of the day, what they're concerned about is how those changes are going to affect their financials. So that's what we communicate with them. If there is a client that needs individual session about understanding all of these things. We do that. But other than that, it's mostly, just reaching out to them through emails or just doing some webinars here and there.
Amazing. Andrea, let me have you kick off our final question, which is, we've talked about a lot of things, technology, how you skill up, all of that kind of stuff. Maybe what's the one thing that you would say to someone that's trying to start a practice or go solo, essentially be an accountant in the space doing this work? What's the one piece of advice that you might want to leave them with here?
I think it's really important to have a wide range of knowledge. You can't just be a US GAAP person that has learned how to do a little bit of crypto. You have to understand the tax environment. You have to understand the regulatory environment. You have to be an expert in whatever type of product they're doing. So if they're on the Cardano network, you have to understand the Cardano network. If they're a BitMining client, you have to understand that environment. And then you have to help your clients manage the risk, because it's simply too much for any of these single clients, unless they're enormous organizations that have their own CRO who that's their job. You need to help them understand. You have to be a part of like the Chamber of Digital Commerce or Blockchain Council. You can provide them with that guidance, because it's part of our gig is to help them on a holistic level, budgeting, cash flow management, looking at their balance sheet. The halving is coming and we don't think that spike in BTC is coming. So does your balance sheet look healthy enough to get you through that threshold? Those type of macroeconomic, environmental questions as well. These are things that you have to be prepared to help your clients with. So hire subject matter experts. Don't just hire someone who has the same skill set as you. Hire people who have a wide variety of skill sets so you can bring that to your client base.
Amazing. Nitin, the last thought you would leave the audience with?
Yeah, so all I want to say is I think if you want to thrive in this space, you got to be adaptable, and then you've got to be on top of the stuff. So just keep on, going. Just go ahead with, understanding what's happening in the market. I think that's the way to stay ahead of the curve.
Amazing. Mel, your final thought, one thing you would leave the audience with?
Phone a friend. We're here. We are a really generous community in terms of knowledge sharing. You are not in this alone.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much. Always love the conversation. I know it's been helpful to the audience. Mel, Andrea, Nitin, really appreciate you guys hopping on in here. And Trevor, we'll pass it over to you here.